Some very bad news for AEW video games moving forward, plus an AEW star retiring soon, and WWE injury chaos. There's just so much going on. We're going to talk about it right here on the Ango Show. Welcome back to TAS, ladies and gentlemen. Let's kick things off with Jade Cargill. As you guys know, there have been tons and tons of conflicting reports surrounding the injury of Jade Cargill. Now, let me give you a quick timeline just so you could better understand what happened. Initially, Dave Meltzer had come out with a report that suggested Jade Cargill was actually injured. Then Pro Wrestling Nexus also did the same exact thing. They stood their ground this entire time that she was injured. Now, where things got really chaotic is where PWInsider.com had reported that they were told that Jade Cargill's injury was actually 100% just storyline based. Then, of course, as you guys know, if you follow my channel, I've been staying up in tune with this entire thing. PWN had continued to stand their ground and say, no, we believe our sources. She is indeed injured. Then, of course, you have a whole bunch of people talking and speculating. Sean Ross Sapp has now come out during a Q&A and says that Jade is indeed on their WWE internal injury list as best as I know. Now, Sean Ross Sapp doesn't typically talk about things unless he can, really feel comfortable with the sources that he's getting. So I think this is a very big L for PW Insider. But I want to say this because I think this part is probably the most important aspect of what WWE does. I think WWE initially announced her injuries and came out with this very, very specific list of injuries that were really gruesome and brutal. And those types of injuries have a very long recovery time. And I think WWE did this on purpose because WWE typically likes to create their WWE superstars' perception that they are superhuman and they could come back a lot faster than they're actually scheduled to be out. We have seen this a couple times in the WWE where people get injured. WWE says, hey, they're going to be out for a year. They're going to be out for a very long time. And next thing you know, they come back a couple months earlier and they hype it up as a big surprise, a big ordeal. And WWE does that because then everybody thinks that person is superhuman. And obviously, I understand why WWE is doing that. I think that's exactly what is happening here with Jade Cargill. I do think there is a legitimate injury for Jade Cargill. I haven't talked to anybody about this. I haven't reached out to any sources. My speculation just comes from all of the chaos surrounding all of these reports. More reports are suggesting that she's actually injured, and PW Insider is really the only one that says that she's not. I'm going to assume with the majority here that she is indeed injured. Do I think it's as bad? No, I think WWE is going to want her to come back as a random surprise and make it sound like she beat the odds of being out much longer than it was. And I think that's a really good idea for Jade Cargill's character. And also, I think for WWE turning this into a storyline, Who Attacked Jade, it's going to create a really, really good, compelling TV storyline. So I'm all for it. Obviously, if she is indeed injured, hopefully Jade Cargill gets better and healthy and is 100% soon. Speaking of injuries, let's talk about Kota Ibushi. Now, this is where things get really, really interesting, okay? He suffered a right tibiofibular ligament tear, and he also had a right ankle lateral ligament complex injury in January. He hasn't really been wrestling much for the year, but he just did an event yesterday at Marvelous. It was a not triple threat, but a 6-man tag match. Basically, he put out a statement with Tokyo Sports and he expressed a lot of concern about his health. He says, I'm at the end of my legs and it could end at any time. I wanted to preserve the time I had left before I couldn't do it anymore, and that's why I was allowed to participate today. I'm really on the edge, but I want to finish contributing to the world of pro wrestling, so I'm participating in various events. Now, with that being said, we don't really know his future with AEW. He is signed with the company, but he hasn't wrestled in AEW since November 15th, 2023. And this is where it gets really interesting because he actually revealed AEW will be getting visas again next year, but he wanted to help Japan's pro wrestling economy. And he says that he's doing a lot of things for free because of it. So obviously he felt like Japan and the pro wrestling world was somewhat going downhill. He was trying to help it up, help raise it up and fix things. And look, I'm happy for Kota Ibushi and I love his contributions. I'm a massive fan of Kota Ibushi. His whole situation with AEW is very weird because he did sign with the company, but we barely see him with the company. And then obviously injuries. I don't think we'll ever see Kota Ibushi full-time in America. I don't think we'll see him full-time in AEW. And I would go as far as saying Kota Ibushi in AEW is probably a special circumstance, a special contract, because it doesn't sound like he ever moved to the United States full-time either. What I want to say is this. I love Kota Ibushi's work. It sounds like he is getting to the end of his career, and I think he's going to have just a handful of matches left, and I do believe he will retire. Based on his comments, based on his health, I think it makes a lot of sense that he might call it a career soon. Now, is this a big blow to AEW? No, because Kota Ibushi is not a big part of AEW. Should Kota Ibushi have been a big part of AEW? Yes, but do I think injuries and stuff like that prevent that from happening? Yes, and therefore I can never, ever, ever blame AEW for that reason. Kota Ibushi, obviously a big friend of Kenny Omega's, and they obviously have this history there. I feel like this was a more of a personal favor than anything, but we'll see what it leads to when the time comes. Speaking of his best friend, Kenny Omega, here's some bad news. If you guys are excited about AEW video games, I'm going to say this, don't. We have talked about this months ago, but now there is a massive, massive update. AEW Fight Forever, it's been on the shelves for 18 months now. The reviews have not been good for the video game. The community, the fans, the consumers, they speak with their pockets. The game didn't really sell well. The season pass content didn't really sell well. The game is outdated. It's a very interesting and weird circumstance for AEW. And truth be told, it sucks because I picked up the video game. I enjoyed the gameplay. I loved how easy it was to just get right into it and play. I live streamed it on this channel. But now the producer, Takazawa from Yuke's, is coming out, and he's actually saying that basically this is all Kenny Omega's decision. He says it's really more of a question for AEW. It's Kenny Omega's decision. Ultimately, it's up to what Kenny wants to do and depending on what AEW wants to do, but nobody knows for sure how Yuke's involvement will pan out. These kinds of relationships evolve and change over time as well. We can say that as a development company, even though what Yuke's does in the future might be a little unclear, I think one thing that is very clear is the wrestling part is part of our DNA and will continue to be a pillar of the company. So we'll definitely keep making wrestling content in one form or another, but I can't specifically talk specifics in this term of the series. Now, with that being said, basically the rumor, the talk is AEW Fight Forever 2, it's not coming out. The sequel's not coming out. AEW doesn't have plans to do yearly releases. The performance and sales of the first game was not hot. AEW landed in some debt because of it. Or I wouldn't say debt, but they were at losses. It was not profitable at all, and it's unfortunate. I think the gameplay was there. Honestly, I do. And I said this in the beginning, and it's funny how things worked out. I said, you got to have a creative suite that's really, really good. AEW didn't have a good creative suite, and it's got to be updated. It's not updated. The gameplay itself is fun. I like the gameplay. I like how it plays. I still play it on the Switch from time to time, but I can't play Stadium Stampede online, whether I'm on PC or Switch. I can't find games online. There's nobody to play with online. People are not playing this game online. And the DLC content is not worthy of paying for because there's really nothing else you can do except just play exhibition games, but there is a limited suite there as well. So this is really bad news, honestly. The one good thing, though, is Tony Khan and AEW, they own the game engine. They own this game. So if they want to go to another developer, they can. But the reality is they're going to need a bigger budget, and they're going to need the sales to prove that it's going to be worth that investment. And quite frankly, I don't think that's there. So enjoy AEW Fight Forever until you can't anymore.